Hello again to my fellow and future gamers. This is X with the Bubbles Gaming channel, and welcome to episode 2 of my Dungeon Defenders playthrough. In the last episode, we did a very basic introduction. Today, we're going to get into some combat. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll be starting off with the Squire, and we'll get right into the tavern. So last time we kind of talked through the different items in the tavern, and the one thing that I did not get to was actually our map selection. So we're going to go right to the Eternia Crystal, and we will pick the Deeper Well on easy, and I'm going to go ahead and select hardcore mode. So normally during a stage, if you die during the combat phase, after a certain amount of time that varies with difficulty, you will be respawned. On hardcore mode, you will not respawn during the combat phase. You will have to wait until the following build phase to respawn. On these easy levels, really don't have any issues staying alive, so I will play on hardcore mode. You do get a bonus to your mana earned and your experience gained if you are on hardcore mode. So we'll go ahead and get started. You can watch the video if you like on your own time. I'm going to go ahead and skip it for now. So, here is the Deeper Well. You'll see that we are entering our build phase. On easy, medium, and hard difficulties, you have an infinite amount of time in your build phase. On the higher difficulties, so Insane and Nightmare, you do have a time limit. You'll see in the upper left-hand corner, we will have 6 enemies that are going to try to make it from their spawn point and destroy our Eternia Crystal on this next wave. The lower left-hand corner has a bunch of information about your hero. The upper right-hand corner says that we are on wave 1 out of 5, so we'll have to get through all 5 of those waves to be successful. You'll also see that we have a defensive unit maximum of 60. So you can't just flood the stage with all the defensive units that you want. You actually have to use some strategy and figure out where you want those things. Lower right-hand corner shows your score and your current character that is in play. So my best friend during these stages is the left shift key. You press and hold that and it brings up the map. Some key things here, you'll see our forge, which we can use to swap out heroes. You'll see the green diamond, which is your Eternia Crystal, so that is what the monsters are trying to get to and destroy. The red semicircles are different spawn points from the enemies, and the chests are chests. On wave 1, you will only get mana from them. Every wave after that, you actually have a chance to get some gear out of there as well. You'll see over the center semi-red circle, enemies 6, 2 different faces, and some numbers. So it's also kind enough to tell us what types of enemies we will be facing and how many of those enemies we will be facing as well. So you'll see that in this wave we're going to see 5 goblins and 1 archer. So with the infinite build time, it's kind of nice. We can really look at the stage, see the different paths that the enemies may take to get to our crystal. This stage is very simple. There's really 4 main paths that the enemies can take, and for the first 3 waves there's only 2 that they can take, so relatively easy to block. So I like to start with the Squire. He has the highest hit points for his towers, which means that they can stop the enemies from even getting to the crystal. Later we can worry about some attack. You'll see at the first level it's kind of tedious. I can only hold a maximum of 40 mana, and each of the chests drops 40 mana. So you just kind of have to go, open a chest, run back, summon a tower, go, open a chest. You'll see how that works. So I know that right now the enemies can only come from this lower level, but I know that in the later waves they're going to come from the other ways. So we're just going to set up all of our defenses for all the different paths right from the get-go. There's no point in delaying, especially at these lower levels. If you have mana to spend, spend it. It may be a little tempting to put it in your bank or save it, but you earn far more mana from selling gear that you're not going to use and from the bonuses at the end of the stage than you do from trying to pocket anything from the wave. So really, if you have it, spend it. So as I said in the last video, I am going to try to showcase all of the 4 main classes to show what their different strengths and weaknesses are. So right from the get-go, I'm going to start swapping out heroes. So here I'm going to press the M key to drop all my mana, and I'm going to swap over to my monk, and I'm going to start placing down auras. Now you see during the build phase you can swap out heroes as much as you want. During the combat phase you cannot do that. So as I mentioned, your characters do gain experience for killing monsters. However, the only character that gains experience is the one that is in play during the actual combat phase. So I am going to level my squire first. So I'm going to make sure that every time I start a combat phase, this time I will have the squire in play. So as a last quick look, we'll take a look at the map. You can see that I have 4 spiked blockades, stopping the 4 possible paths to my Eternia Crystal, and I placed down 1 Ensnare Aura. I'll place down a few more after this next wave. So you can either go to your Eternia Crystal and press the E key to activate for your combat phase, or from anywhere in the stage, you can press the G key, and that will start your combat phase. So now you see from the center door, the enemies are starting to come after us. So here's a good example. That first enemy, you can see that he kind of has some lightning around him. That means he has the lightning element that is associated with him. So he will not take any damage from lightning sources, and he will do lightning damage when he attacks something. See that the archer here has the poison attribute. Here's another lightning and a fire attribute on these goblins. So we completed the wave. And now starts our next build phase. So while I'm leveling the squire, I'm going to open all of the chests with the squire. So the gear that drops from the chests and the gear that drops from enemies will be associated with the character that you have in play. So if you want gear for your squire, you want him in play. All of these items I'm going to just take place right in my bank. I don't like equipping new items in the middle of stages. Sometimes they're green, which means that they're technically better than what you have, but there's a lot of different variables. They may not be really associated with what you consider better for your character. So I put everything in my bank, and then later on I'll sift through it and gear all my guys the way that I want them to. So I'll swap over the monk, and I'm going to finish placing down these auras. You can see that that aura over on the top is blinking. That means that it did take damage, per se, during the last wave. So I will have to repair that. So I'll go over and do that really quick. So hotkey, you hit the 4 button, and you can repair, or you can center click, go to repair defenses, and you can click from there to repair your towers if they do take damage. So we'll place down 1 more Ensnare Aura, and then I'm going to swap over to my apprentice. Now the apprentice has those magic missile towers, so I'm going to place those behind my spiked blockades so that these will attack enemies as they are approaching the blockade. You can see I'm placing them right behind the blockade. I don't have a lot of range on these towers yet. Ideally, you would have space between your blockade and the magic missile tower. You'll see in the later waves We'll see orcs. They have a swing attack that can damage both items at the same time. So once my magic missile towers get a little bit more range on them, I'll be able to place them further away from the blockade, and they won't have to take damage at the same time. So now, once again, since we are leveling the squire, I'll go back, swap over to him, and we'll start the next combat phase. So you'll actually get to see this Ensnare aura take effect, so it's slowing down the enemies. They'll walk within its range. And we have a level up available. So I'll continue by applying the points to my towers first, and then we'll work into our hero stats. You can also see that the amount of mana that I can hold at a time went up to 60, which is nice. So I'll go through, open all the chests, pick up the gear, and then I will swap over to my apprentice to finish building the magic missile towers. So it looks like I'll be just a little bit short of being able to make that last magic missile tower, but we'll finish that up on the next wave. Swap back to the squire, and we'll G up, get the wave started. So you can see up there the towers doing their job. And wave complete. Not quite enough for another level. But as you can see there's an item that dropped from one of the mobs. If you hold shift, you can actually see the green dot at the bottom of those stairs. A green dot means that something dropped that is better than what you currently have equipped. A black dot just means that something dropped. So this first stage playthrough is going to be, I guess, a little bit contradictory. Like I said, if you do have mana, you want to spend it. However, with the low level of these characters, our inability to upgrade any of these towers, we are going to end up with leftover mana. We'll just let that good or bank this time. But once our squire or your character of choice makes it to level 4, then you will be able to hold 100 mana. Then you can upgrade things, and then it's never worth maintaining that mana if you can spend it on something. Right, so there's our last magic missile tower, and now we'll go ahead, swap over to the Huntress, and place down some traps. As I said in the last video, I'm going to use the Huntress. I don't typically use her at lower levels, just because I think that her traps are a little more tedious than anything. One of the things you can do to help yourself out is, because the trigger for the trap is smaller than the actual range of the trap, if you put the trigger well inside the ensnare aura, this is going to slow all the enemies down. So as they come in, they'll slow down right here. So they're going to start to collect. And then by the time somebody makes it to the trigger for the trap, you'll be able to hurt more enemies than you typically would have been able to. So I'm going to place it right here. So they have to get really up close and personal with those spike blockades in order to actually trigger these proximity mine traps. I'll probably lose 2 of them this round, but I'll kind of show where they can be effectively utilized. Right, so as you can see now, our defensive units in the top right-hand corner are completely maxed out. We cannot build anything else. So I'm just going to swap back to the squire. And really all we can do is sit back and watch these enemies get destroyed. So wave 4 is the first time that you'll see these big guys. Now we have orcs that are coming at us. A lot more hit points than the archers and the goblins. And their attack is an arc, so it can attack more than one thing at a time. So we did take some damage right there. So now you get to a safe place, and you press the 1 key as a hotkey for its health heal. Now we're back to maximum hit points. So you can see one of our proximity mine traps has already been destroyed. So the one down there and the one down there are both gone. So I'll have to re-summon those at the beginning of the next round. Right, I am going to change one of my settings here. this step towards melee target, as you could maybe tell when I was attacking some of the mobs, the squire was automatically going towards him, which can be good and can also be really painful, because you can follow an enemy off of the edge into some lava, or it's just kind of difficult. Without automatically following that target, you can walk around and just basically run circles around enemies without being automatically moved towards them. Alright, so I'm going to go back, prepare everything. I will resummon those proximity mines, and then we should be all set. So now we'll swap back to the squire, and we'll start the last rage. As you can see, my score right now is 712. It's quite amazing, especially on hardcore mode, the difference between all of your normal waves and then the bonus that you will get at the end of the final wave. And congratulations, our first stage victory. Alright, so now we're up to a level 5. We have a new ability available to us, and we should also have a new tower available to us. So I will probably show off the new towers at the beginning of the next video. So at the end of my stages, you can just go to your Tourney Crystal or hit G, and it will automatically take you at the same settings to the next stage. I don't like to do that. I like to go back to my tavern between stages so that I can verify all my gear and take a look at possibly upgrading some of that gear. So I will return to the tavern. And we'll go check some things out. So I'm going to go to the Tavern Keep, and we'll go to the item box, and this is where you can see all of the equipment that dropped or came out of those chests in that last stage. You can equip this on anybody that you want, so just because it dropped for the Squire doesn't mean the armor can only be worn by the Squire. The weapons are class specific, the armor is not, so feel free to gear all of your different guys. I'll go ahead and do that off screen and test those different things, see what the different armors are like. So like I said, I am going to be using all 4 of these heroes, and I want to keep them all together, so this is going to get a little bit grindy for me. I'm going to do this stage again 3 times, so I will do it easy on hardcore, using the Huntress, the Monk, and the Apprentice. I will be using very similar builds, so not a whole lot is going to change, so I'm not going to bore you by watching that whole stage 3 more times. But in my next video, all of my characters should be level 5s. I will start off with a new tower showcase of the new towers that they have available to them. I'll show off their new gear, and then we'll get into foundries and forges. Once again, thanks for stopping by, and thanks for your time. Feel free to subscribe. This is X from Bubbles Gaming, out.